Here you can observe the average RuneScape noob trying to figure out how to make goblin armor orange. Surprisingly, that's not how it's done. And this red piece of armor is the start of yet another wild goose chase around Gielinor, where I try to figure out how to make dyes, how to actually use them, and hopefully end a gruesome goblin war in the process. My name is 57BadSibis, and I obviously still haven't got the slightest clue of what I'm doing. At the same time, it also looks like I just woke up from a feverish dream, and I adjusted my wardrobe accordingly. So let's maybe start with getting rid of that, and to maybe answer the potential question of why would someone even look like this to begin with, the answer is a lot of my past adventures involved either weird events or pretty much just walking around, and fancy cosmetics is, well, all you could get. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And part of that is motivating what happens next. Well, I get rid of that past, both physically and metaphorically, so I could make room for adventure once more, both physically and metaphorically, as we're once more going on an actual adventure. Something that hopefully involves a little less just walking. Oh, how naive. One might think I would have learned something over all this time playing this game, but oh well. Anyways, this right here is pretty much the moment I doomed myself. I checked out the list of quests once more, as it has been quite a while since we've done that. And wouldn't you know, at the top of the list, as we might as well start there, it's the Goblin Diplomacy. And given that all these quick stat fun facts down here make it look like something that I could do, especially the novice part giving me a lot of hope, I decided to start the quest by talking to the Goblin generals in the Goblin village, pretty much as stated right here. So once more, we're off, and coincidentally, the recent events I went through are once more giving me a rough idea where to go, as the direction is pretty much the one of the winter event. And just like in the event, I get distracted rather easily. But given we have to deal with goblins very soon, I consider this warm-up. Once more, very important, even in video games, I'm sure. Anyways, I'm making my way downtown, walking fast, faces pass, and I'm homebound, which makes no sense really, as I'm leaving home technically, implying that Lumbridge has become a home to me by this point, but maybe that's not far off actually. I do make it past some familiar places though, and part of me really hopes that whatever is in this house is part of my journeys very soon, as it is actually intriguing. Have to admit, the whole haunted house thing, yeah, caught my attention. But we're not here for some spooky business, at least I hope so. We're also not here for the winter business. We've done that already. Still not too sure what to think of it. From all the events I've been part of, this was definitely one of them. My goal is even further beyond than this. Once more, places I've never been to. On top of that, quickly after, the journey took a little bit of a dark turn as I turned into a dark forest. Yeah, I don't know. A bit of a forced transition, I know. While I was forced to transition said forest. Okay, leaving all that behind us, and the forest as well, I made it to my destination. Goblins everywhere, and pretty sure we will find a general somewhere. So I'm clicking in the rough direction of what I assume is the town center, and instead of there being some sort of path downwards, the game sends me on a journey within the journey, essentially. I come past yet another altar that I will mentally checkmark, some sort of dugout, and a place with a bunch of skull signs, which I'm okay to stay away from, I think. My character keeps marching though, even though I have yet only given that one click command earlier. Past a fellow Christmas enjoyer, keep making it all the way around until I eventually come to a halt right here. Really glad we took the scenic approach and, you know, got a little bit of an idea what we are about to get into, literally, as I'm getting into the Goblin Fort. The second I arrive, all hell breaks loose and people start beating each other up while vividly discussing color theory. I think the fight is lit, I have to say, but there are more important matters at hand. For example, finding that general and figuring out what the hell's happening here. Surprisingly, entering the biggest building around does the trick. And here we meet General Wartface and General Bentnose. Fantastic names once again. Those two guys are doing pretty much what happened outside the door, but in a little bit more of a civilized manner. Speaking of civilized, I am also instantly included in the conversation, trying to put an end to the this argument by taking a very diplomatic neutral stance, which is surprisingly not received too well, and funny enough just raises more things to argue about, which, yeah, lovely. I am then able to redeem myself by asking the right question, and I'm sure asking why the people arguing are even arguing is always a banger. It does net me a little bit of an explanation though. The Goblin New Century just happened, apparently, which was the occasion for some rebranding in form of a new colored armor. And depending on who you're asking, one is obviously always better than the other, which is communicated perfectly. Me, always the helpful hand, I try to find some form of solution, which I'm not sure if it was understood perfectly by my conversation partners. So how about a different color? You know, let's compromise. Or to put it in other words, it would mean that me no wrong, but the other guy no right either. And my idea is a surprising success. And we start the Goblin Diplomacy quest. Which brings us to the hardest question yet. What should the replacement color be? And for some reason here, the guys are instantly in sync, asking for orange armor. Naturally leading to a follow-up question, where the hell do we get that? Step 1, relatively simple, getting Goblin armor. I've done that before. Step 2, I just dye it orange. Thank you, very helpful. And of course, it wouldn't be a complete conversation without a little bit of a condescending comment. Thank you, very helpful. There's some good news though, as apparently Goblin armor are also spare around the village, so I don't have to go back and kill poor goblins once more. A little bit sad too, though. More importantly, where the hell do I find orange dye? The advice I got is to go to the north into the wilderness. There I will find many ways to dye. I'm glad they are making the bad jokes, so no one can blame me this time. Anyways, more productive news. A goblin or another stole it from an old witch in Draenor village. And once more, one of the past adventures comes in handy, as I've been there before, I'm pretty sure. And with that, I've heard enough. Let's get it. Let's leave the two to their conversation, I guess, as I once again have bigger and greater things to do. Looking for goblin armor, that is. First shack is a little bit of a letdown, but I find a wiggling sack where I hear a muffled groan, which I better leave alone for now. Shack number 2 contains a crate, and wouldn't you know, goblin armor achieved. So we're pretty much halfway done with the quest anyways, you know, all we need is orange dye. How hard could that be, right? Well, guess I'm about to find out, but not before actually double checking once again what I'm supposed to be doing, as mistakes have been made in the past. But the instructions of the magic scroll are relatively clear, which in Draenor is the next step for sure. And for that, we will be needing many steps. And I'm once more off into the world. And I'm happy to report I make it to Falador without any major interruptions. Also, given my past mishaps, the game has become less of a labyrinth, at least around these areas that I've been to before, which I'm quite happy about. So I guess it turns out that walking isn't that much of a daunting task anymore. Don't know how I feel about enjoying the fact of walking properly, but I'll take it. Given my track record so far, I take literally any win I can get, yes. But eventually I'm progressing a little bit slower. But as we do have some time to kill, I want to quickly answer a question that came up recently, as someone of you actually looked it up and confirms that the goose could actually get drunk. Like the one in front of the Santa thing, you know, like the portal. And you might not remember. That's for the better maybe. But I'm glad to present random bird facts with bad cibis. Only makes sense, I guess. But enough of that. Let's beat up some guys. I'm never sure if it is me getting bored of just walking around and I just have to click on something for, well, you know, dopamine points. Or if it merely has become a tradition to kill these guys whenever we pass by here. Especially as they still give me a cape every time I do so. Still nice of them. Well, be that as it may, only time will tell. And once again, I have more important matters at hand, such as getting to the witch in Draenor. And once more, I'm proud that I make it here without stumbling around or getting completely lost doing something different. Progress. Well, let's talk to Aggie. And asking the right questions, I find out that she used to turn people into frogs actually. Asking more reasonable but boring questions confirms my suspicion that we are correct in assuming that she is the one that gives us the dyes. But being offered this list of color choices got me confused. next. And this time we're reaching the state of confusion surprisingly early. Said confusion manifests itself in me frantically clicking every single thing and examining everything in this room in the hopes of there being an orange dye hidden somewhere. This surprisingly leads to absolutely nothing, and even my recently learned double checking the journal move isn't doing me any favors this time, as the text is still the same. Also absolutely shocking is that talking to her again changes nothing with how the conversation plays out and the options I'm offered. Crazy, isn't it? But I had to find some form of solution, didn't I? And all the while searching the room and just standing around not really too sure what to do next, I eventually came up with this incredible plan of what if the colors offered to me are part of the solution. As you know, yellow and red would technically make orange. Given that this might actually be very obvious, it took me way too long to figure this part out, I think. Anyways, be that as it may, I was sure that I did find a solution and asked questions accordingly. This includes classics as how to make the dye, red and yellow, and what ingredients I might need, and maybe most important, where would I ever even find those ingredients? And just like that, I have unstuck myself, not necessarily because the game changed, but because I changed. Very interesting. Could philosophize about this quite a lot, I guess. Let's rather not do that. Let's instead look for onions east of here near a field of sheep. Relatively simple instructions, one might think. But my lack of focus or care for detail shows very quickly, as I seem to have just read or understood the first part as I was mainly looking at the farm east of here, and it took me way too long to find a field of sheep, even though I have passed it more than once. Still, onions acquired, I simply just take what actually isn't mine, so it then is mine, as is customary around here, I guess, which finishes the ingredients for the yellow dye already. For the red dye, we have to get a bunch of red berries near a forest in good old Varrock. So good old walking it is, I thought, but no, I was bothered by one of these weird dudes again, and an invitation to a mime show. How could I say no to that? In hindsight, I should have maybe very much said no to that, as this game quickly proved my lack of expertise in the field of miming, as initially I for the love of God couldn't figure out how this fucking game works. Essentially, you just mimic the guy, but I had no fucking clue what the hell the guy was doing. A little bit of a trial and error process later, I make my sweet escape from this shithousery and was actually happy that I could start walking. I am still oddly entertained and proud of doing basic game mechanics like click on the ground. Fascinating. But oh well, I was once again off. And I crossed a familiar lumber bridge, which I was now informed is not quite the reason why it's called Lumbridge. It's because of that river next to it being the River Lum. It's not quite bird facts, but close enough. Also, I get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right here. No one's doing chicken magic. I just had to take this. Besides that, I've been on this path many times before and make it to Varrock without further incidents, let's say. Biggest question now, what group of trees is considered a forest? And which of those groups contains red berries? It was definitely none of those that I've just been to, and after once more skillfully passing the wizards without causing too much trouble, I get to find out that this forest, I guess, right here not only has kadapa berries, but also the red ones we're looking for. I stock up the required amount of 3, and a safety berry. You never know. And we're back to my most favorite part, walking. Which I guess there's no better time to tell you that the chicken is the closest living relative to the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Not crazy, and I'm pretty sure most of you know that, but bird facts might still beat my bridge facts, I guess. Regardless, we are passing a easy to locate field of onions, and merely a few potential bird facts later, which is definitely not a made up way on how to measure distance, we are back where we started. To once again find out if my made-up plan made any sense. This time I get right to business. I hand over the required fee and regions, and wouldn't you know, 3 of the red ones and 5 of the yellow ones turn into a big red one. Nice. We repeat this action with different ingredients, getting a different outcome surprisingly, which brings us to the moment of truth. I do my due diligence and double check. Text still the same. And yeah, this is where the moment of truth very quickly, as is tradition here, turns into utter disaster. Good news first, I was very proud that I instantly figured out how to dye the goblin armor, which brings us back to the truthful moment of disaster, or disastrous moment of truth, where I find out that then mixing it with red dye is not making orange, but simply overrides the yellow color and makes it red goblin armor. Definitely teaching me how to confused eye, but once more, leaving me in this room, in this exact spot, with as much confusion as I left it.